May I suggest to take a seat, please, so that we can start on time. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Hoon Kim. I am there, Acting VP for Investment Solutions, which is newly created group within AIIB. And here, we are delighted to have you with us for what promises us to be an illuminating and insightful session this afternoon. Today, we have the privilege of hosting a panel of distinguished leaders who will shed light on how policy-based financing works in the context of climate transition. Now, with this, let me invite Sir Danny to the stage to deliver the opening remark. Sir Danny is VP for Policy and Strategy, and he oversees strategic direction, policies, budget, and partnership. Danny, please.
Thank you very much indeed, Hoon Kim, for the introduction and for moderating this panel. And I know that I am standing between you and a distinguished panel with one minister, two vice presidents from our partner institutions, the World Bank and the ADB, and one member of our international advisory panel. So I will keep my remarks brief because they're the ones you've come to hear. But I'm very excited about this because climate policy-based financing is a new instrument for AIIB. It's the first time that we've adopted policy-based financing as a regular instrument for the bank. And it comes from the thinking that we have been doing about how AIIB can best support our members in their low-carbon transitions, their transition to net zero. We know that climate change is an unprecedented crisis facing the world. It's accelerating at a rate faster than predicted, and already the impacts that people around the world are experiencing are very severe. This year is on track to be one of the warmest years on record, and so we don't have much time. Speed and scale are important. And so AIIB, we made green infrastructure and climate finance the first priority of our corporate strategy. We had the goal that at least half of our financing should be climate finance by 2025. Actually, we achieved that several years early. Last year, 60% of our financing was climate finance, both climate mitigation and adaptation. We have, along with our partner MDBs, we've implemented Paris alignment, which means that every single one of our projects has to be aligned with the goals of the Paris Agreement. That includes both mitigation and adaptation. So we have to build climate resilience into every project that we do, whether it's the project is focused on climate or not. And we published our climate action plan last year. So the question we were asking ourselves is, what more can we do? And we know that in order to achieve the climate goals that our members have, mobilizing the private sector is absolutely critical. And that's not just a matter of supporting that on a project-by-project basis. Actually, greater impact can be achieved, as we know from the experience of the World Bank and ADB, by working with our members, also to help them with the policy reforms that are necessary to help mobilize the private sector, crowd in the private sector at an even greater scale. We also know that climate change adaptation is lagging a long way behind climate change mitigation. You know, the flow of investment into projects with the goal of protecting people from the consequences of climate change is lagging way behind. And so we want to do more also to support adaptation. And so our board approved this new instrument, climate policy-based financing, only in June. We had discussions over the course of a year to develop and refine what we want to do and how we want to do it. The core of it is that we want to support policy reforms that are designed to help member governments advance their national climate transition objectives. So in that sense, it's driven by client demand. And it allows AIIB to provide this lending, either standalone, where AIIB works directly with a client, or collaborate with other partners. Actually, we were delighted that at the June board meeting, on the first day, the new policy was approved. On the second day, we approved our first project, which was co-financing with Asian Development Bank in Bangladesh. And we've seen since then really a lot of demand from our members and a lot of opportunities also for co-financing. We believe that AIIB has something distinctive to bring to this agenda because of our particular focus on infrastructure. Infrastructure is critical to the climate transition. Something like 80% of the financing to actually achieve the transition to net zero will be financing for infrastructure projects. And so we want to bring that expertise and that knowledge to the discussions that we have with our clients, but we also want to continue the collaborative partnership approach that has been at the core of the way AIIB works from the very beginning. We're very proud to be the largest co-financing partner of the World Bank and of the Asian Development Bank. And we've been having discussions just in the last 24 hours about how we can further deepen both of those partnerships. And so I think the introduction of climate policy-based financing is a big step also to equipping AIIB with the full range of instruments in our toolbox, as we call it, although I'm not sure that word is quite right, but anyway, in our toolbox of instruments to help our clients achieve their climate transition objectives at the speed and the scale that the world needs. So with that, thank you very much again for attending, and I will hand you over to Hoon Kim to moderate the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny, for your introduction and insight. So you have paved the road for panel discussion. We can move on to very insightful discussion. Now, please allow me to invite our esteemed panelists on the stage, please. Okay, so naturally, as a moderator, my job is to introduce our esteemed panelists. So let me start with, on my left, Minister Karshibayev. He's a Deputy Minister of Economy and Finance from our host country, Uzbekistan. And he has extensive experience in finance, and he has played key roles in the economic development of the country. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Vice President Antonella Bassini from the World Bank. She joined World Bank as YP, and now she leads strategic and financing work for this region, beyond this region, Europe and Central Asia region, with over 30 years of rich experience in operation, which absolutely include, with World Bank, it is called development policy loans. In old days, I remember it was structural adjustment loans. Names keep changing, but it is about the policy. And the Vice President Ingming Wang from the Asian Development Bank. The VP Wang leads the region of South, Central, and West Asia of ADB operation. And he has also more than 30 years of experience in economic development. Actually, he had a distinguished career as executive directors at both World Bank and ADB. And he was a board member of GIF, and GCF. Now, we have very important guest today from private sector, Ms. Narjis Nastolayeva. Welcome. She is advisor to the CEO, Landmark Business Center. She has extensive senior management experience in both private and public sectors, and including roles in finance, real estate, and advisory position. Actually, in fact, she is a member of our bank's advisory committee. Welcome. So, with this introduction, now we can start. Let me just add one more background. In AIIB, we don't call ourselves a climate bank. Many banks do that. But we are a climate bank with 50% minimum climate financing target for our investment. This is one of the highest among MDBs. And this year, we expect to overachieve it again. And we have done so far this through our project loans. But good projects need sound policy and institutional framework. Also, private sector investment will not come in with policy and regulatory risk. So, for all other MDBs, the policy-based loans or development policy loans have been in their toolbox for a long time, and for AIIB, now this new lending modality for regular operation is become available and new, so that we have organized this taking advantage of the time of annual meeting, to learn from the experience of peer MDBs, and hear from the government, also hear from the private sector, so that we can contribute also by becoming a credible partner, working as a team to improve policy environments. Now let's turn to Minister. AIIB, this is new modality, but AIIB aims to support our borrowing member up to $3 billion of a policy-based loan next 18 months. And Vice President Denny has already mentioned our first loan already with ADB approved, and we are working on the second one in Uzbekistan. I'm sure you may mention it also, but second one, we are also working with the Asian Development Bank. So maybe can you tell us, of course, naturally, what are the key challenges in climate change? And why do you think that policy-based loan is equally or even better to address these challenges? And what is your government position on this? Thank you, sir.
Mr. Kim, thank you very much. First of all, let me express our appreciation for Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank having this annual meeting in here. It's a big honor for us. And of course, it's a very good opportunity for our government and overall population of Uzbekistan to share our achievements of reforms and also discuss what should be done in order to ensure sustainability, sustainable growth in the long run, and addressing the key challenges we are facing. Actually, this climate change related impacts or negative impacts are not something new for us. Actually, we have struggled already with RLC disaster. It was one of the largest lake globally, and because of improper use of water and problems in the irrigation systems, it drying out. But recently we are experiencing more droughts, extreme heat, rainfall volatility, dust storms, and this has a very direct impact on the GDP growth, on the health of the population, well-being, and these challenges are a heavy burden, and we are experiencing this. But it's a luxury, you know. When I was a student, I thought this climate-related technologies approach, green agenda is it's too expensive for emerging countries. It's something for advanced countries. Right now, I think it's a luxury not to address them, because without that, we cannot ensure sustainable growth. We cannot meet our targets to fight the poverty, to make sustainable growth. These ambition goals our president shared recently, yesterday, and the government is committed, every official is committed to deliver this, because we owe this to our population to ensure the good environment where they want to live they want to stay and they want to grow. If you say, let me give you two challenges, for instance, in the agricultural sector, irrigation, you know, we have concerns about the supply of water in the agricultural sector overall. That's why we are trying to face it. How we are doing is with our development partners on a project-based approach. We are trying to use the laser planning, dripping technologies, other cementing the canals, so that we will minimize the losses and we will efficiently use our resources. With every development partner, take it ADB, take it World Bank, take it Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, we are having the similar projects. And this is a benefit that we are having, and this is something we highly value. If another one is, you know, we are fighting poverty. We have very ambitious goal to increase our GDP by to $160 billion by 2030 and become among the upper middle income countries, right? For that we need energy. We need produce electricity. But if we go with the traditional generation of electricity, it costs a lot. It has a negative impact on the environment as well. That's why what we are doing is, for instance, we are working on the renewables. By 2030, we will have, inshallah, 40% of all the generation through the renewables. Let me just briefly give you some examples how we work with the development partners. Apologies, I'm taking too much time, I bet. For instance, with your bank, esteemed bank, we are working now on solar panels and helio collectors in the villages. With World Bank, we have this, we hope that we will work on the result-based loans, which will go with on the cementing of canals and irrigation systems improvement. With IFC, we work with the heating pumps. You know, we have both sides, you know. If it is warmer, we need to cool down, cooling system also use the energy. Extremely hot in summer, so we need to do something with the centralized cooling systems. In winter, we need heating system. And again, it's energy related. So we have so many directions of collaboration, and we stand ready and very happy to have you as a partners to face these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Because your development partners, ADB, Vice President Yang, and also World Bank, Vice President of Masani are all here, so I'm sure they will have enough to say something about your country and about the challenges, some of the challenges you also mentioned. So let's now shift to development partners first. With the VP Basini. So I also like to inform you that I like to ask you a question regarding policy-based loan. And we, AIIB, because we are learning, I said, right? So last week we had a policy-based loan workshop. And we discussed a number of things. And one of them is World Bank's experience. World Bank has a very good evaluation report and all that. So from there, we could learn that what are important is well-defined program objective is important, and government ownership is even more important. And then the World Bank report says also, you know, analytics is not simple. It's much more complicated. Macro, fiscal, sectoral, political, economy, financial, fiduciary, all these are multiple. It's more than project loan. And also, World Bank report said good program should not be overly ambitious. I want to ask you, what does it mean? We should be ambitious, but not overly ambitious. And also must be contextually tailored to countries' practical capacity. So all this we are learning. So what is your guidance based on your own experience? And what is also the reason for the World Bank's increasing lending and operation with regard to climate challenges? Over to you.
Thank you very much. And first of all, let me thank you for inviting me to this panel in the context of these 2024 AIIB Annual Meetings. Very pleased to be here. The bank has used development policy financing as a lending instrument for many, many years. And as for many years cover policies and reforms in the area affecting climate. But it's in recent years that the emphasis in including these aspects in development policy financing has increased. So to give you a sense of this acceleration, about 25% of our development policy financing had climate co-benefit in fiscal year 2021. In fiscal year 24, we moved to 34%. But it's only in the last 12 months that we increased by 30%. So the acceleration is pretty rapid. And this comes hand in hand with the objective of trying to, one, enhance our support to meet the ambitions of our client countries in terms of climate commitments. And number two, open the door through policies and reform to private capital, because just MDBs of government finances is not sufficient. And so increasingly we have included in partnership with governments elements in development policy financing that covers, in the region I cover, first of all, climate mitigation, because the experience of the region of Europe and Central Asia in the last 2-3 years have been of very significant challenges in energy security and very ambitious commitment in terms of energy mitigation, but also climate adaptation, also increasingly water conservation, land degradation, and so on and so forth. So we have started with a strong emphasis in the region on climate mitigation, and we are now continuing to expand on climate adaptation. The achievements, we see already achievement in a few years with countries reducing CO2 emissions, adjusting their legislation and regulations, and as well as increasing government spending from climate action. I want to say that what we have learned is that it's not just the determination of including policies and reforms supporting climate action, but it's also having in place certain instruments. Very critical for us was the preparation of country climate and development report, what we use as an acronym CCDR, which in itself is quite an undertaking. These are very in-depth, complex studies, usually take several months, to support country in identifying how do you move from climate ambitions to climate action. What are the critical pathways, the critical bottlenecks? And we are using those to inform the dialogue with the government on which policies and reform are a priority. But we also had to develop systems to identify what are the best outcome indicators, what are the best screening tool to screen operation for climate and disaster risks, what are the mechanisms to measure the impact on climate, and this is a process we have gone in the last few years, and we're very glad to share it with the AIIB going forward.
Yes. So, I mean, I'm just reminded, so climate policy-based loan is concerned, we need a full policy analysis. And you mentioned the World Bank climate diagnostics, which is available, actually, latecomer like us can use. And you also have other policy papers, macro, and even gender analysis on all that, we can benefit from that. Just quickly, one question is, World Bank has done so much policy work, but this is aims really to bring more private capital. So we always say that. But can you give us some real example? Because of this, real private money came in.
So a very concrete example, which is almost in every DPO, development policy operation that we do now, is on ensuring the financial sustainability of a sector. A private capital will not come in a sector if the sector is not financially sustainable, whether it's energy, whether it's water, having the proper tariff, having the proper legislative framework. This is one specific example.
So therefore, attracting private capital is particularly important. So now, Vice President Yang, actually I worked in ADB for many years, and but I have seen some changes. First of all, ADB now calls itself a true climate bank. So what does it really mean, first? And also, I have seen a substantial increase and focus on climate-focused policy-based law. So there must be also a renewed commitment on this direction. So whether you can give us shed some light on this.
Because I have to repeat many of her points one way or another during the discussion. I hope the audience will not treat me as a plagiarist. Instead, regard me as a pilgrimist who is busy advocating all the good messages from all over the world to the world. Before I respond to the moderate's question, why we call ourselves as a climate bank, I would like to quote a statement by our president, Masakawa. And he emphasized, the fight against climate change will be won or lost in Asia and the Pacific. Why? Because about half of the greenhouse gas emission of the world, the global emission, originate from Asia. And many countries in Asia are exceptionally vulnerable to the negative impacts of the climate change, including exceptional human casualty, given the population size and the density in this continent. And the good news is countries in the region are strengthening their actions climate change. I think Vice Minister Joshua has given a good illustration based on his own experiences. As a student, he was saying he thought the climate change is a problem for the advanced countries. And now as a senior government official, and he emphasized, we want to do more with climate change. So against this background, and ADB as one of the most important international financial institutions in the region, we need to accelerate our efforts to help the countries to meet their needs, to meet their aspirations against the climate change. And so our president also declared ADB is the climate bank for the Asia and the Pacific. And this statement is also underpinned by actions, including in 2019, we commit to provide $100 billion climate finance between 2019 and to 2013. And recently, our board also endorsed the midterm review of our strategy 2030, asked the management to be more ambitious with the climate goals. So according to the new requirement, by 2030, 50% of our lending will be climate finance. And since today's topic focusing on the role of the PBL, let me also briefly highlight some of the roles PBL can play. This is an area I will repeat tremendously with my colleagues from the World Bank. And in the first place, PBL can help us to achieve the numeric goals of climate finance. In 2019, when we declared our climate ambition, and the climate finance through PBL was merely $0.2 billion. 5 years later, the corresponding figure for this year will reach around $3 billion. As Antonella has emphasized, more countries are demanding more PBLs for climate change. So we are expecting more climate finance will be provided through PBL in ADB as well. And secondly, I need to repeat what Antonella has emphasized. PBL can help catalyze more climate finance from different resources. In ADB, we are using PBL to help countries to develop green taxonomy and issue a green bond. While the issuance of green bond can increase private capital mobilization, green taxonomy will guide the private credit allocation, more private capital for climate finance. We are also using PBL to create enabling environment for private sector development, also set up the carbon credit market, all of which will contribute to the mobilization of private capital. So my third comment relates the PBL can help borrower countries to sustain their development objectives. The progress with climate objective cannot be sustained unless it is supplemented by the progress with other broader development objectives, such as promoting growth, creating jobs, upgrading skills, and improving social protection arrangement. PBL, given its efficacy and efficiency in helping the government to design a comprehensive policy, legal, institutional framework that guide and drive the comprehensive and balanced progress with climate objective and the development objective, can sustain the momentum, the support for climate goals. And here, Antonella also emphasized the difficulties of measurement. This is the area where measurement of impact may be very difficult. And so frequently I said we have to comfort ourselves with the wisdom of great scientists. Albert Einstein once said, "Not everything that counts can be counted."
Thank you. That's very insightful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, let me. When I was still a very young development banker 30 years ago, somebody whispered to me, a long time ago, whispered to me, "Okay, if you don't have a good project, you do policy loan." But that was when the policy loan capacity was low. Now, recent World Bank evaluation report clearly says the development effectiveness of policy loan is not only commensurate with the investment loan and has an even bigger impact because it changes the system and institutional framework. So it is very important, especially climate challenge. I would say the joint MDB report just released last year, but I remember last year, entire MDB climate financing altogether, World Bank 32 billion, World Bank Group, something like that. 32 billion plus last year. Altogether far below 100 billion. But challenges, we only hear trillions of dollars. So what does it mean? We need a good policy. So good policy, I mentioned already, we need to attract more private sector. So private sector has to bring 98% of money. And Ms. Najeez, do you believe MDBs doing enough policy work to attract? And what is also your position on climate change from private sector? Let's hear from you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to join Antonella in thanking the government of Uzbekistan, the wonderful people of Uzbekistan for hosting us. It's a real joy to join the meeting precisely in the beautiful city of Samarkand. In the last 2 days, we have heard a lot about the importance of climate financing and the climate investment. But in my experience of in the private sector, especially in the intersection of private and public sector in energy and finance, I have observed several challenges that significantly hinder that mobilization, the effective mobilization of private capital. You know most of them. It's not going to be anything new. First will be the perceived investment risks, and that consists of two parts. It's the regulatory uncertainty, constantly changing regulations, and the lack of single long-term policy framework that would allow the investors to accurately assess their risks and returns. There are the usual market risks. In a lot of developing countries, the market for climate investment, like renewable energy, is not yet developed, so it makes it very difficult for investors to assess the market demand, the prices, the price stability in general, the viability of the project. There are insufficient financial returns. This is the reality. A lot of the climate-related projects require substantial upfront investment, and they have very long payback periods. That makes it very less attractive than the usual investments. And there's also a problem of monetization of the environmental benefits. A lot of the projects, climate projects, do have positive externalities like increased resilience and decreased emissions, but it's still difficult for, they're not easily monetized, and this also makes it difficult for the investors to capture the full value of their investment. There is still, despite of all the work of MDBs, there's still limited access to financing, and that also comes in two forms of inadequate financing mechanisms. There is still more need for blended finance, the green bonds, the sustainability-linked loans that your institutions do. And there are high financing costs. In our part of the world, in developing economies, the cost of capital can still be prohibitively expensive for the private sector. We have capacity and knowledge gaps. Very often the private sector is missing the specialized knowledge that's required to identify, develop, and manage climate projects. And these projects tend to be quite complex, both technically and administratively. So they require specialized knowledge in resilience and renewable energy. So this is a significant challenge. There is still inadequate risk mitigation mechanisms. Climate projects are usually exposed to unique risks such as extreme weather events, and there are simply not enough insurance tailored insurance products on the market that companies can use. I'm not going to mention the usual currency and political risks, although we have discussed the foreign exchange risks. Almost every climate-related project requires financing in foreign currency, but then the revenue generation is usually, if it's done for local, if we're talking about renewable energy, for example, there's always a significant currency risks that someone needs to take. There are still infrastructure barriers, even with the perfect project, insufficient roads or aging grid or transmission system can be a big problem. And last but not the least, but very serious, is there is still lack of clear metrics and reporting standards. The private sector, especially those representatives that need to report their climate projects, their sustainability projects to their stakeholders, they still lacking the standardized metrics and the reporting system, and there is which also increases the risks of greenwashing, when you have some companies don't even want to go that way so that they're not accused of greenwashing. It's still very difficult to assess the real impact and whether or not there is an impact of their investments. So these are, I don't mean to be very negative, and I hope that we will also discuss the opportunities in the next rounds, but these are pretty much the problems that the companies do face.
Thank you. Yes, particularly your comment on metrics, I fully agree. Because to me, MDB communities have this joint MDB methodology of calculating all this, which is somewhere between art and science. And then we are now starting the sustainability reporting, on the investment side. AIIB is also doing so. So all this ISSP and things, this is just starting. So metrics is something that we are really facing a challenge. Now we are entering the second round of discussion, and I may need to invite back Minister. This is about how public and private can work together. We talk about this all the time, but maybe we still are not really doing that, or this question remains. I'm just back from India, just share with you, where originally I went for hydrogen project, but coming back with green hydrogen, green ammonia, because green ammonia policy environment is there, so it's being commercialized already. But hydrogen, World Bank is providing $3 billion policy-based loan, and you need to build regulatory risk, and so that private sector coming in. Now, you had a very hot summer here this August, and you don't have all the money, and how do you plan to work with the private sector? Similarly, Ms. Najis, so, I mean, you already mentioned, but maybe you can give us some more example. Bring new technology in, but government difficult. Minister.
Thank you. Indeed, I think, of course, from the public side, we never have sufficient funds. We cannot finance everything. It's quite obvious. That's why we need to partner up with the private sector. And we have a pretty straightforward framework. It's a public-private partnership framework. And we have I believe we have quite advanced in this practice. For instance, I mentioned renewables. For instance, solar, wind, and hydro generation. We have, I think we have been praised by our development partners that we advanced so far, and we are very proud of that. But of course, there are some challenges, as Nargis Hanım already mentioned. It's about risks. Who will be taking the risks? And how to manage these risks? At that point, very important is the role of development partners. It's about finding the balanced approach, finding the win-win position when risks are allocated properly, and nobody is suffering too much. I mean, public institutions, the government, is also if it takes a risk, it is taxpayers' money, right? Overall, it is very important to have a very balanced approach where the private sector involvement is ensured, but the risks are managed well. It's a very high level of, I think, professionalism is needed and capacity building stuff. If you take concrete examples in Uzbekistan, we have currently the president approves, the government approves the PPP pipeline for $30 billion up to 2030. If you look into that, we think that there are some opportunities to be when both sides are winning. For instance, pumping stations. You know, we have a very huge irrigation system and thousands of pumping stations, but the pumps are very old. They are very inefficient in the energy side. If we private sector, we are introducing, we are working with several partners already. We started, completed projects. A number is coming. These pumping stations, when we renovate them, we put new pumps, they are very energy efficient. Even if we keep the payment at the same level, the energy consumption might drop to 30% or even 40%. That means it's a very efficient and way of collaboration with the private sector. When investor is getting these payments for electricity, but actually we're cutting the costs. Another one is water, electricity, or gas distribution systems in the regions. If we have a proper agreement and we will make sure that the losses in transportation, in distribution, will be avoided due to the proper management, investment in the transmission systems, then there might be a very good balance of risks, and both sectors, private sector investor also will win, and the government will benefit from that. I think this is a good collaboration, and this framework we will be pushing through. And we hope that our development partners will join us as usual, support us as usual in this uneasy, but very, very important targets to follow. Thank you.
Thank you. Indeed, the MDBs were the market makers when we first time introduced all the solar PV and all that, yeah? So we supported the market that we created. And Najeez?
Well, I would like to join Deputy Minister in saying that there are challenges to the public-private partnerships, challenges that I already mentioned. An additional challenge to this particular projects would be obviously different priorities, because public and private sector sometimes have different priorities of profit maximization versus the public good. They have different time horizons. Private sector wants to get the money back sooner. The payback periods are much shorter, whereas the government and the development donors have a longer time spans. Despite all these challenges, the public-private partnership is the unique opportunity to actually leverage on the strength of both sectors. We have discussed in the last couple of days that there is about $15–20 trillion out there that can be used for climate action. If you take all of the MDBs, the sovereign wealth funds, and all the private equity funds, there is about $20 trillion out there that could be used. It is still not enough, because another number we heard is there is $37 trillion that's needed for to solve the climate problems. It is not enough, but it's still, I think that with a strategic policy framework, when the governments and the institutions like ours look at it strategically, with the fair risk-sharing mechanisms, when the private sector is provided that needed safety net, with innovative financial mechanisms that again, the institutions are working on, we can make it work. We can actually make it happen. And you have examples. You have the areas of these partnerships, public-private partnerships are numerous. One of it is research and development and the digital solutions. I think Israel is an excellent example when you see the public research institutes, the universities working alongside the private equity funds and the end users of the technology to solve the irrigation problems, to solve the smart grids, to create solutions. So I guess my point is, it is not easy, but it's definitely worth it, and this is the only chance together combining the public and private capital to actually try to catch up with the growing needs and with the financial gap.
Thank you. Actually, I absolutely agree with you. Money is never enough. We always say that, right? But on the other hand, money is enough for good projects. The good project is what is also scarce. So is a government help so that de-risk? So I mean, anyway, risk allocation is always the thing. Then money will always come in for good projects. So I think that way we can work together. Now I'd like to turn to Vice President. First, Vice President Yang and the Vice President World Bank. So what do you see the biggest climate change challenges in your regions, especially Central Asia region, including Uzbekistan? And how will you balance between policy-based loan and your project investment? And maybe that will be also provide us some guidance.
Thank you very much. Given the time limit, so I prefer to focus on the PBL again. Yeah, although PBL is only one of the available instruments for dealing with climate change, but since today's topic is about the new product developed by AIIB, so let me use my several minutes focusing on the PBL. And since I have to label myself as a pilgrimist at the very beginning, so let me start this round by pretending to be a philosopherist. And development is a learning process full of tests and errors. I think the same shall be true with the tools for promoting development. And having said that, according to the experiences so far, we believe three factors stands out for any PBL to be successful. That is national ownership, country-specific approach, and country capacity building. Country ownership is the key. One reason is the long-term nature of climate action impact. There is always a long lag between the implementation of climate action and the availability of visible results. This requires persistence, determination, and patience of the government and the citizens as well. And the second reason relates to the complexity of the climate actions, which require frequently a whole of government approach and even a whole of society collaboration. I think Vice Minister Joshua remind me a good example from Uzbekistan. Ownership really matters and counts. I have highlighted his mentality change about climate change, and For the PPP areas that has been discussed a moment ago, Uzbekistan is another good example demonstrating ownership counts and matters. So during my April visit to the country, when I met the Deputy Prime Minister responsible for investment, he emphasized, for future investment proposals I receive, I will ask my team to screen the proposal to see whether they are suitable for PPP modality. I will scale up PPP modality not only to hard sectors like infrastructure, energy, but also to the soft sectors like health, education, and urban utilities. Given the strong ownership of the government, during the May national programming, our two sides have developed a strong pipeline of 11 PPP projects, totaling $2.1 billion for the next 3 years. So I hope at least some of the project with their successful delivery will respond to your highlights about the knowledge gap, the standards gap facing the private sector financier in the field of climate change. So this is the national ownership. Yeah, so really matters and counts.
Thank you. National ownership, 11 PPPs. Wow, that is very, very impressive.
Yeah. So very quickly, let me also highlight the importance of country-specific approach to design PPP and implementing PPP. Different countries have a different capacity. This, in a large extent, decides the extent of the policy, climate action policy mix. And also, different countries are facing different economic situations and at different levels of development. This will impact upon the prioritization, priorities of the climate change reform package. So it's important for us to follow a differentiated approach to support the climate change program, which can be evolved from time to time with ambitions increased, supported by increased capacity. Yeah. So many colleagues already emphasize the importance of a country capacity building. I will not repeat here. But based on my experiences observing other countries, and as a former representative of borrower, I can safely say the more capable the country is in dealing with complex challenges, the more ambitious they will become in dealing with climate change.
Thank you. Maybe hopefully we can join hands on that. Now, Vice VP Abasani, so challenges, and you also advise to a young organization like us so that we can also contribute.
So thank you, and I will also limit myself to the policy-based operation for the time available. I would highlight possibly 3 challenges that we have faced and continue to face. The first one is the need to be selective in the policies and reform that we support to policy-based operation, to understand the proper sequencing, and to do it in a programmatic way. Climate action requires many set of intervention, both on the reform side, on the investment side, and it's important to help government identify a programmatic longer-term view and not just the operation by operation type of approach.
Yeah.
This is something that and this is also why we are moving on the policy-based financing to a series of operations. We don't have any more standalone ones, but we need to do it in a multi-year framework. The second is, of course, institutional capacity, which, because these are reform and policies that are complex. It's not about passing a law, it's about implementing a law, is about providing the institutional, it's about having financial sector that supports support the private sector coming in, and many other elements that go beyond the support that can be given through an operation, but require a complementary set of tools, whether it is capacity building, whether it's investment operation that support the policy-based operations. And one of the institutional capacity challenging in particular we face is that of interagency coordination. If, for instance, one takes the issue of water conservation, it's not one ministry, it's multi-ministries. It's about having an approach where multi-ministries can work together in a coherent way, and that's also where we have learned we have to come in and provide as much support as government may need or may ask. And third is that of mainstreaming climate action. So far in policy-based operation, we have supported policy and reforms in one sector. And more, it's about mainstreaming climate action and consideration across all sectors. And I think that in all these three areas, what the MDBs can do is to continue to collaborate and collaborate even more together, because we all provide support for policy reforms, we all provide institutional capacity, and a coordinated approach can help, I believe, our client countries achieve better results on the ground.
So your message is very clear. A policy-based loan is open, multi-sector and whole of the bank approach, and it also generates externalities for all the project loans. So that is the benefit, and we will take it from that. We have exhausted our time, but maybe can I have just one question? Yes, please. Yeah. Can you identify yourself also?
Rivers Without Boundaries International Coalition. And it's a very interesting discussion, and I'm curious about climate-focused policy-based financing in AIIB context. AIIB doesn't have country strategies and does not have comprehensive, at least institutionalized comprehensive analysis for the region. It funds projects. And therefore, it was discussed, and it's written here, that the funding will be provided on the basis of, let's say, national determined contributions under UNFCCC. But as we know, the quality of these plans vary from country to country. And I'm just curious how AIIB would address that. For example, in the case, let's say, of Ragun Dam in Tajikistan, when the country proposes to overcome the seasonal shortage of power by building more giant hydropower and being already 95% dependent on hydropower, thus increasing its reliance on the uneven flow of the rivers, and what would be the tools the AIIB would use to help the government optimize the project to bring the solution of energy situation faster and for a smaller price that is needed for one of the biggest dams in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for raising that issue. AIIB, as you know, is relatively a young bank, but we are rapidly building our capacity. For instance, in Uzbekistan, now we are working with the government. We don't have country strategy as such, but we have developed a multi-year program. So we don't do project one by one ad hoc. We want to contribute to countries' long-term development program, and we want to be part of it, and this is being implemented. And also, as a young bank, our approach, and also global international forum like G20, demand all MDBs work together as a system. So that is why I mentioned earlier, as a young bank, thanks to World Bank and ADB colleagues, we are using much of their deep analytics. I mentioned World Bank's this climate diagnostics is available, and the gender issues available, and environmental and social. So until we develop our own capacity, we will work together, co-finance together, and we will work on that. So, but still, we need your feedback on the ground and whether we are doing things right or not. So I think we all should work together. And VP Young, you have something?
I think the gentleman has raised some very interesting questions. I cannot help but make some additional remarks, particularly referring to your question about the too heavy dependence on the hydropower. Since the inception of AIIB 9 years ago, our two institutions have been enjoying very productive cooperation, which is also pleasant. And the two presidents will sign a new MOU guiding our future cooperation. And one of the new focus, new priorities will be regional cooperation and integration. When ADB was established in 1966, its charter specified supporting financing regional projects of regional cooperation will also be a priority in addition to the national project. World Bank, ADB, and in the future AIIB can support more regional projects that can help countries concerned to exchange their power, gas versus hydropower, so that the exchanges power electricity arrangement can smoothen the seasonal fluctuation of the supply of hydropower and gas-driven power. So regional cooperation and integration will be an important instrument to help address the concern you have mentioned.
Thank you, Vice President Yang. Actually, the regional approach is very increasingly important, and we all contribute. Now, I'd like to conclude this panel discussion with the final comment from Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much. Once again, thank you. Thank you for all panelists for this, not just a good discussion, but for being our good partners during this reform period. And I want just to complement this comment on this question. For instance, currently, with ADB support, we recently completed one policy matrix on a green economy. It's a PBL. And AIIB is currently considering co-financing. This is one unique example, for instance, how we could work together. And of course, this capacity building, not just the capacity building. You know, this PBLs and DPOs are a very good access for us to the best expertise. When we, together with the experts of the World Bank, ADB, AIIB, we could design the frameworks, design the laws, drafts, so that they will meet our requirements, I mean high bars to make our growth sustainable. I mean, this kind of collaboration is really appreciated by the government, I think. And when we do this kind of co-financing and we work together, it's always a win-win situation, in my view. Thank you once again.
Work again. Thank you, Deputy Minister, for your final remark. And now the meeting is concluded. And thank you all for your participation. And let's work and move in the right direction together. Thank you very much.